Hey everyone, how are you doing? Hi. It's great to have everyone here already. Where I am, I'm in just my living room. Hello, Easy Violin, Adeline, Redtail, Cloudy. Well, we have a bunch of people. John, Roberto, Kenny. How do you motivate yourself to play? That's a good question. Do you enjoy playing violin? Because if you don't like playing, yeah, I get what you mean. So when it gets frustrating, I would say rather than trying to keep practicing the things that you don't feel like practicing, just move over something that you enjoy playing. Just have fun with your violin. So this is one thing that a lot of people forget to do. Like we practice hard stuff, and then we just like forget to have fun. So just tinker around. Yeah, definitely. That's a good idea. I do this a lot. Just you can also improvise. It's fun to improvise. Like you make your own song. How do I loosen my fingers tendons to improve vibrato? I would say you can do this exercise like this. Practice like doing that just without your violin. Then kind of like relax your hands and try to really kind of make sure that as you press on the string, your fingers stay really nice and relaxed. Hello, Olgika. I don't know if I sorry if I mispronounce your name. I wish I could know. Andrés, ¿sabes el español de casualidad? No entiendo. My teacher violin don't like me. What do you mean by this? Your violin teacher don't like you, or your teacher's violin doesn't like you? When I see your live vid, I always have to play violin while what? Well, that's great! If this can motivate you to practice, I'm really happy about this. Sí, yo puedo hablar español un poquito. Pero yo entiendo muy bien español. My pleasure. She hate you? Your teacher hates you? Well, that's not fun. Maybe you need another teacher. from Iran. Hi. Hi, Mohammed. Thanks for joining. I have a question. I can tell you Spanish or better in English. Either way works. Entiendo español, pero es más fácil para mí de responder en inglés. You cannot change. Why not? Is it your teacher at school? You cannot change school, I imagine. Puedes tocar Storm of Storms. I don't know that song. Can you suggest a song for me to learn that sounds thrilling but pretty, but also easy? Yeah. I mean, do you know how to play Experience? It's a good song, easy to play. Yes, I love Experience. I love Experience, but I feel like it doesn't sound good on my violin, but I try it because I love it. Yeah, it's a great song. I love it. Sambo cello is better than violin for real. Let's agree to disagree. Cello is great, but violin is definitely better. What song would you recommend for a new violinist? A good song that I like to play that is great for a beginner is Ode to Joy. It's a nice theme. Elena, salut. Salut Elena. How are you doing? Do you have a channel in Telegram? No, I do not have a channel on Telegram. I actually don't know what Telegram is. Maybe it's something I need to know. Canon and D. Let me see about Canon and D. I haven't played it lately. How do you do vibrato? So vibrato is very complex to explain just like this. I would have to see what's your vibrato like. Okay, what is the hardest song to play? It's kind of I don't know. To be honest, I don't know which one is the hardest song to play. I mean, there's a lot of really hard songs to play. Angie, Campanella, please. I'm 11 years old. What does that mean? I don't understand. What are the different types of vibrato? So there's 3 different types of vibrato. It's a finger vibrato, wrist vibrato, and an arm vibrato. And then I would say that like to the best possible way is to be able to kind of like connect all of them or use a little bit of each one of them depending on the situation, what you're trying to do. So finger vibrato will be kind of like a little bit like a very small vibrato. But for me, it always starts from my arm. And look, it's like a rotation motion. So I kind of turn my hand from there to here. So there's this motion that goes like that from side to side. And my fingers kind of like rotate on the fingerboard like this. As it rotates towards here, my finger gets round, and back there it goes to more kind of like a long. So you can practice this motion first, long finger to round, just like that with your finger. And then you can practice kind of like adding your wrist to it, that kind of like make it rock a little bit more from side to side. And then after this, you can add your arm basically. And if you keep every single part flexible, so your fingers should stay flexible, your wrist should stay pretty loose, and then your arm should stay pretty loose too. So very important, kind of like rotate. You can practice this kind of like the rotation motion. You can practice the finger like that. And then last is kind of like the motion starts from your arm, but like your wrist and arm has to kind of follow the motion all the time. Okay. I always feel bored during training and people around me make fun of me. I have no one to support me and I feel helpless when I see professionals playing and I don't play like them. What do I do? Andrew, that's a pretty deep question. So basically what I would recommend is if you can find some people, I feel it's important that you surround yourself with at least like a couple people that you really trust and that you can talk about your experience learning the violin. So my experience was not always so great too. I always preferred to practice at home because in school everyone's kind of listening to you and judging you, and I always preferred to practice at home even when I studied violin in college, and I would always go back to my place to practice. But I had a few friends with who I would make music regularly and how we could talk about, the ups and downs of learning the instrument. But learning violin is really tricky. So you really have to surround yourself with people that you can trust. Bonsoir. You solved me a question. Is the violin the hardest instrument or not? That's a good question. To be honest, the thing is I don't play every single instrument. For me, it is. So I teach three instruments. I teach violin, guitar, and piano for very beginner. And the hardest instrument for me to teach is definitely violin, and on top of this, violin is also the instrument I'm best at. So the hardest thing about the violin is to get started. So the beginning, when you first get started playing the violin, it's really hard because you need to learn how to hold your bow properly, which just this is actually pretty tricky. And just holding your violin properly too can be really hard at first. So you have to learn to become very comfortable with your instrument, to learn to make a beautiful sound. So this at first is really tricky, then you have to get good at this, and then after this good at figuring out the pitch, where to put your fingers. I'm training from Suzuki Book 1. Is that enough? It depends. Do you have a teacher guiding you through the Suzuki Book 1, or are you learning on your own? Can you play Mama Vier Cloud? I don't know that song. What bridge do you use? On my violin, I have a Supérieur d'Espio. It's a French bridge. You've been playing violin for almost 8 years and yet you don't think your sound is the best sound. So This can be for a lot of things. When you practice your violin, if you really want to get a nice sound, you have to really focus on how it feels when you put the bow on the string. And you have to really connect with your instrument, because every violin is very different, and all our bodies are also different, and every violin will react differently to anyone's playing. And even your violin might ring differently on your body than it will on my body. On So it's very important to understand this. Then if your sound is not great, first thing I would start from is your posture. If your posture is very like inward like this, it's very hard to have a nice sound. You have to open up, open your shoulders. So very important posture. Keep your back straight, open shoulder, open chest when you practice. Super important. You should even practice either in front of a mirror, or film yourself and then watch the videos of you practicing and try to understand, okay, what did I do at that moment? My sound was not so good and I look also very uncomfortable. So that might be the connection. Or where is your bow? Are you using the proper sounding point? Are you playing too close to the fingerboard, too close to the bridge? All of this is super important. Trying to play Felix Mendelssohn opening, and I'm doing everything right, checked by my teacher, but the fast part doesn't sound right. I would have to hear this to be able to help you out, you know? It's hard to give a tip on this like that. Okay. How long did it take you to get good at vibrato? So, how long did it take me to get good at vibratos? That's a very good question. I don't really remember exactly. I remember working extremely hard on trying to get my vibrato down. And like doing everything I could. I was like, alright, Mohammed, you're spamming everyone, so I'm blocking you. Okay. Can you recommend some good but pretty cheap strings? So what would you consider pretty cheap? Because like let's say the cheapest I would go that I know of would be the dominant strings. But they are not that cheap. Let me see how much they are right now. Dominant violin strings, they are about $50. So that's kind of like the cheapest I would go. I struggled enough until I got my vibrato. Yeah, like I feel, whenever you want to get your vibrato down, you really have to, you just really have to keep going at it. Don't like just keep practicing, keep trying until you get it. You know. Um, all right, Angie, you're super annoying too. I'm getting tired of those spam. If I don't answer like a request of a song, please like don't write it a million times because it's just bothering for everyone that actually have questions. So I'm putting you on timeout, Angie. Sorry about that, but you cannot comment anymore. So yeah, dominant strings, around $50. Definitely, I wouldn't go under this. Thank you for joining us, Penelope. It was good having you. Shoulder hurts while playing. Okay, that's a good question. Which shoulder? Is it your right, left shoulder? Is it your shoulder that you hold your violin on, or is it your bowing shoulder, or is it both? Because both shoulders. So it just means that you're probably super tense when you're playing. So one really good tip to do to avoid this is because whenever probably you put your violin ready to play and probably you're holding your violin with your shoulder up like this, like very high, and because of this your other shoulder is coming up, and then you're trying to play with your shoulder super tense. You have to really whenever you're trying to hold your violin, just put it on your shoulder. Don't even add your head yet. Put it in a spot on your shoulder where it feels stable even without your head, and then only you can add your head as like an extra. You kind of like secure it there with your head. But first it should be in a comfortable spot on your shoulder, right? So like put it there, add your chin, and then you can be relaxed. Also, as soon as you put your bow on the string, try to lower both your shoulder and really relax. Name, good question. What happened to the other room where you usually record? I'm just in my living room right now, chilling on my couch. I just thought I would do a quick live on my phone. Very simple. Coco, hi Coco, thanks for joining. Creativa, productora, I live in Mexico. Viva Mexico, mucho gusto. Do you have any tips on how to learn syncopation? How to learn syncopation is very good. That's a very good question. You can practice it with your foot. So you can tap the downbeat with your foot down. And then whenever your foot is up in the air, you can play. So it's like... that's a really good way to practice syncopation, to kind of like feel the downbeat and you play on the upbeat. So pa 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 dun. So super important to feel the downbeat. Dicle, hello, Christian. ¿Hablas español? Sí, yo hablo español. How long have you been playing for? I've been playing for 20 years. You recommend using a shoulder pad for good posture? That's a good question. So, I've been kind of like messing around with no shoulder rest, shoulder rest. I can play easily without a shoulder rest. I can play with the shoulder rest. The thing with the shoulder rest that I feel that is kind of nice is just that your violin is more stable. So it moves a little bit less. So if you're playing or if you're practicing many hours, something that have a lot of shifting, it's a little bit more demanding, like physically demanding to play without a shoulder rest than it is to play with a shoulder rest. Because without the shoulder rest, you have to work a lot to always bring back your violin where it should be. So because there's nothing to grip, so your violin is kind of constantly moving down and then you keep bringing it back up. And this is the trickier thing without the shoulder rest. Fourth finger tips. Fourth finger, that's a good question. So, okay, fourth finger for the beginner violinist that are having trouble with using their pinky. So we tend to have our hand super high, and then we get to, because it works well for the first three fingers, so your hand might be really high like this. It's really easy for the first three fingers, but then when it gets to the pinky, you have zero strength. So your pinky actually has a lot more strength when it's more long, so lower. So remember to turn your hand inward to make it easier for your pinky to have more strength. So we, like a lot of beginner, we start practicing, our hand is super open like this, and the pinky is so far from your violin, you can barely reach with your pinky, so it's really hard. So you want to turn in and lower your hand. And that's where you get, so by lower your hand, I mean like lower it this way. So down this way. So you lower your hand. If your hand is too high, it's going to be very hard to play with your pinky. If your hand is lower like this, you get a lot more strength in your pinky. Can you... Sometimes the strings hurt my fingers. So probably you're pressing way too hard on your strings with your fingers. So that can definitely happen. So there's a good exercise for this. It's not the most fun exercise, but basically you play the note, and then after this you kind of release the pressure. So you kind of learn to have your fingers on the string without pressing too much. And then after this you can slowly add pressure, but as soon as you can hear the note, you shouldn't press harder than this. If not, you're really like digging that string into your finger and it will hurt. And on top of this, it's not so good for your violin, and it's not good for your sound. So you don't want to press too hard on the strings. Another good way to practice light pressure on the strings is to play very quietly, like piano, because most of the time when we practice, both of our hands are very synchronized. So if you play loud, you're most likely pressing hard on the strings. If you play quiet, you're most likely pressing less. So you can start practicing this very quiet. It's also a good trick to start practicing like fast runs and things like this. Can you make a tutorial on how to put on the strings? Yeah, I've been wanting to do this. I need to do one soon. Is it easier to play standing or sitting or standing? So standing, the good thing about practicing standing is that your posture will be better. So it's harder to have a good posture when you're sitting down than it is when you're standing up. What are some good warm-up songs or chords? You can practice just like some good old like minor scales. Okay, so there was a good question here. Do you have any tips for double or triple steps playing tips? So, double steps and triple steps are very different. Like, I know they kind of seem very closely related, let's say. Double step, the best way to start practicing is just with open strings. One thing you have to remember is like in order to hit the two strings, you don't have to put more pressure. That's the main problem that everyone does. Like they start pressing twice as much because they're like, oh, I have two strings, I need to put a lot more pressure, but you don't. You just have to find that perfect spot right in between the strings, and then so for the this is the bow part, and then after this for pitch, always make sure you have one solid note. Tune the next one. For triple step, here's the thing. Triple step, you need to press harder. And in order to hit the three strings at the same time, you have to go a little bit closer to the fingerboard because the strings are closer to each other, closer to the fingerboard. And then you want to apply enough pressure that you're actually touching the three strings. And then you just move the bow fast. If you go too slow, you're gonna get some nice scratch right there. So let's say when you play Fairy Tale, that's exactly what you want. You want to play kind of close to your fingerboard with a lot of pressure, but fast moving bow. But how do you touch three strings at once? So look at this. If I go very close like this, I put my bow closer to the fingerboard because they're closer to each other, and then I apply enough pressure until like I'm actually touching the three strings. I've been learning violin for a few months now. Do you have any tips for beginners like me? Like how it's just such a random question, you know? Like how beginner are you? Do you have a teacher? What are you practicing? Do you need help with anything? Do you understand how to hold your bow, how to hold your violin? Are you already learning a few songs? What are you trying to practice right now? You know, it's like if I ask someone like you know, how do I get to space, you know? Like, but I have no idea. Like, it just doesn't make sense like this question. So if you want to know something, just ask like a clear question. How can I put the bridge correctly? Well, your bridge should be correctly on the on your violin already. I'm not sure what's your question. You mean like readjust it? You have to kind of like pull it back every once in a while. Make sure like it's really straight, perpendicular with your violin. So I've been playing violin for oops. Oh no. I've been playing violin for 20 years. How long does it take to become a professional? It takes a little while. Like, I mean, you have to keep practicing for many years. And then try to do some competitions, auditions, join a local orchestra. There's a lot to it. Sunny Natalie, hey, I've been recently wanting to start my journey with the violin. Do you have any recommendation on what to look for when buying one? So it depends really on your budget. I would say make sure that you don't go too cheap. So there's like $50 violins on Amazon. I would stay away from these. They're just really poorly made and they might make your experience not so fun at the beginning. So I would rather invest maybe $200 around, like at least to get like something that is decent, or either this or rent a violin for a little while. So you can rent violins for about like $15, $20 per month somewhere, and then you can try it for a little while, see if you like it. And most of the places where they rent violin, they also let you buy them after a while. Like basically, you're paying your violin as you rent it. Can you play? All right, well, everyone, I got to go, but thank you so much for joining today the live. It was great. I will see you next time.